Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. So, this is our second to last week of the course, which is a little shocking, but there it is. The last day of classes is May 1st, next Friday. So, what we're going to do today is go over the 5C grammar as usual, and then next week we're just going to do a brief overview of the most important topics from 5C through the end of chapter 5, just so that you have some familiarity with them should you continue on in Latin. So for today, we have this cute little sloth, because of course it's Monday, and as you will note, he has some moss growing on his fur because he moves so slowly, which is adorable. So, hope you enjoyed that. And now moving on to some grammar. Okay, so the first grammar topic for today is the jussive subjunctive. So we've learned a lot of subjunctives that rely on other types of verbs. So verbs of commanding, for instance, perficio, accidit, verbs of, what else have we talked about? Well, I feel like those ones are the most important. We've had fore ut, we've had quo, we've had relative clauses. The jussive subjunctive, however, is an independent use of the subjunctive. So an independent subjunctive is by itself in the sentence. There's no other main verb. There's nothing really setting up the clause. It's just the main verb of the sentence acting on its own, and therefore it is independent. So the word jussive comes from the Latin word eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, which we've already learned. And eubeo means I order. So the jussive subjunctive is a type of command. So we've learned imperatives as a command. We've learned indirect commands where you have a verb of commanding and then the command itself. So he orders that someone else does something. That's an indirect command because someone is explaining what the order was. But a jussive is a direct command. So in this case, we have generally first person verbs. It can also be second or third person, but it's most often first person. So you're commanding yourself or maybe a group of people with we. So if you want to say in English, let us go for a walk, that would be a jussive subjunctive because you are commanding the group of yourselves and your friends, whoever, to go for a walk. And since you're commanding yourself along with some other people, it is usually in the jussive rather than the imperative. Imperative only works for second person. You go to the store versus let us all go to the store would be jussive subjunctive. It's also just a little bit more polite than the imperative. The imperative is a very harsh order. The jussive subjunctive is a polite like, let's do this, rather than now you do this. Okay, so let's go through some examples. So the most famous example of this in all of Latin literature comes from Catullus, who is a love poet. So here we have it. We have vivamus mea lesbia atque amemus. So both vivamus here and amemus are subjunctive. They're in the first person and they are the main verb of the sentence. Therefore, they are most likely jussive subjunctives. And in fact, they are. Mea lesbia, vocative, my lesbia. That's the kind of nickname, fake name, code name, whatever you want to call it, of Catullus's lover. She's referred to in a lot of his poetry. So here we have jussive. So let us live, my lesbia, and let us love. So it's kind of a call to action, a nice way of suggesting that the two of them do something together. Let us live and let us love. So it's jussive because it's in the subjunctive, so it's urging them to do something, as opposed to if it was in the indicative, it would just be we are living and we are loving, which has kind of a different connotation, not quite as exciting. So that would be in the first person, let us live and let us love, first person plural. If we want to find an example in the second person, we go to Cicero. And here he is cautioning his friend. So cis, you know, is a subjunctive of sum, so you are. But here it's in the subjunctive, jussive, so may you be, and then cautus means cautious or careful. So may you be cautious, my Tiro, or my Tyrus. Tiro, I guess. And again, just another vocative here. So in the first person, you usually use let in English, let us do something, but in the second person, you usually use may you do something. So if you wanted to be kind to a sibling or family member, you might say, may you clean out the dishwasher after dinner? And that would be a polite way of suggesting that they do it, as opposed to ordering them to do it. So that's second person, may you, whatever. Third person, you also use let, generally. You might use may. But here is the most famous example of this, taken from Genesis in the Bible. Let there be light. You might wonder what that is in Latin. Wait no more. Here it is. So fiat lux. Fiat, as we know, means from fio, become, be made. Lux means light, so let light become, but let there be light, specifically. So again, kind of a command, but a nice command rather than an imperative, harsh command. Okay, and last detail about the jussive subjunctive is that the negative is nay. So if you want to say, let us not live in love, you could say, ne amemus atque vivamus, or other order if you want. But ne is the negative. Okay, next type of independent subjunctive, aka subjunctive on its own in the sentence, is the deliberative subjunctive. This is my favorite kind of subjunctive. Hopefully I haven't said that before, because this is really my favorite. So, deliberative subjunctive, as you would guess from the name, means something you are deliberating about, and it's always in a question. So it looks very similar to the jussive, but this time it's in a question as opposed to in a statement. So, here's a good example taken from Plautus. So, you use the subjunctive in a question in the first person to deliberate about what you should do. You could also use it in the first person plural, what we should do, but it's the same idea. So if you have quid faciam, it means, what should I do? So instead of quid facio, which means what am I doing, which would just be kind of a weird question, you have what should I do? So it's more of deliberating. You're kind of trying to decide something. And then the best type of question here, we have maneam aut abeam, which is should I stay or should I go? Like the song, the should I stay or should I go now? So, very exciting. Hopefully that song will help you remember the fact that we have deliberative subjunctives, because that song is entirely a deliberative subjunctive. Should I stay or should I go? They're deliberating. What should I do? So, if it's in the first person, plural or singular, in a question, subjunctive, it's probably a deliberative subjunctive. We're just going to go kind of quickly through the rest of this until we get to the numerals, just so that you have an awareness of it, but we don't spend too much time on things that you likely will not see. So, real quick, sometimes subjunctives also express wishes. So, if in English you say, would that it were raining today so I could be more morose, that would be a wish. So, in Latin, the way you say would that is with utinam. Do keep in mind that most of these English definitions of Latin words were come up with maybe 100 or 200 years ago, so no one really uses would that anymore, except Latin scholars, because it's the best translation of utinam. So just keep that in mind. But utinam means would that, and it takes the subjunctive. Okay. A lot of other types of wishes you have in here. You can look through them if you want. I'm not going to be responsible for them, but you have velim from volo, I should wish, nolim from nolo, I should not wish, malim from malo, I should prefer, ausim, I would dare, possim, I should be able, and a couple other ones. Mostly they're just polite ways of expressing yourself that we use all the time in English and don't even think about. Okay. similarly, we're just going to zoom right through impersonal verbs. Again, you will not be responsible for them in this course. They will be helpful to you if you're planning to continue on in Latin, but you will learn them again next semester if you're continuing, so don't worry about them too much right now. They're kind of tricky and not as important as some other things. So two we've already learned are licet and apportet. Licet takes a dative and then an infinitive. So it is permitted to someone to do something in the infinitive. Portet is it is right or it is proper. So it is proper for someone in the accusative to do something in the infinitive. And this chapter just gives you a bunch more verbs. So you have verbs such as decet, it is fitting; dedicet, it is not fitting; painetet, someone repents; miseret, someone pities; pudet, someone is ashamed; and libet, something is pleasing. So look through them if you want. Don't worry too much about them for our purposes. And then we get to the impersonal verbs in the passive. Sometimes verbs have a different meaning in the third person singular passive impersonal. Again, feel free to look through it. Please ask me any questions if you're interested, but don't worry about it for exam purposes or quiz purposes. Okay. All right, what I really want to talk to you about is the numerals, because I think those will actually be useful for you in your day-to-day life. So, real quick, just gonna sing a song from 1 to 10 so that you can remember them. So, we have unus, duo, tres Romani, quattuor, quinque, sex Romani, septem, octo, novem Romani, decem Romaniam. And that's how you remember 1 through 10 of the Latin numerals. Hopefully that helped. Okay, once you get past 10, the ones from 11 through 20 are a bit weird, so we're just going to go through those so that you're aware of them. So you have undecem, duodecem, tridecem, quattordecem, quindecem, sedecem, septendecem, which all kind of makes sense because you just take the word for the numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you smack it onto 100 or onto 10, kind of like we do in English with, 13, 14, 15, like 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, very similar. But then, once you get past septendecem, which is 17, you get to duodecimviginti, unodecimviginti, and viginti. So instead of 18, 19, and 20, the way they say it is 2 from 20, 1 from 20, 20. So that's a little weird. You have 16, 17, 2 from 20, 1 from 20, 20. And that continues on throughout the numbering system. So you have viginti unus, viginti duo, viginti tres, viginti quattuor, viginti quinque, viginti sex, viginti septem. But then you get duodecimviginti, duodecimviginti, unodecimviginti, triginti. So 2 from 30, 1 from 30, 30. So that's a little weird. Takes some getting used to. But if you want, you can just practice counting up to 100 in Latin for fun. Why not? What else do you have to do with your lives? Probably a lot, so don't worry about it if you don't want to do that. Okay, so now that we've settled that, we're going to do some practice with Roman numerals because you see them around all the time, and it's really helpful to know what they mean. Okay, so let's start going through the Roman numerals. So we have unus, 1, is an I. And then you just kind of keep counting up with the I's until you get to 5. So you have 1 I, 2 I's, 3 I's, and then when you get to 4, you have 5 minus 1. So 5 is V, 4 is IV. So if there is a smaller letter before the bigger letter, so in this case you have 1 is an I and 5 is a V. So if the I is before the V, it subtracts. So it's 5 minus 1. So this is 4. And then if you add 1 to the other side of V, so it's after V, you add it, so that's 6. So you can only get up to 3 I's before you have to do 1 from, and then whatever the next number is. You'll see in a minute. So you have 5, 6, 7, just keep adding them. 8 is V with 3 I's. But then when you get to 9, because this is 3 I's, you have to go to 1 from the next number. So 10 minus 1 is 9, then you get 10, 11 would be xi, 12 xii, 13 xii. 15 is xv, so 10 plus 5, 15. Then you go all the way up to 19, so you get XIX, 10 plus 9. Remember, if you have the 1 before the 10, it subtracts, so 19, 20, XX, 30, XXX. 40, however, is a little bit different. So, oops, sorry, this got smudged. This is an L here. Hold on. Okay, so this is an L. L is 50. So if you have 40, you have 10 from 50, because you can only add so many x's. So you can have 3 x's in a row to get to 30, but for 40 you need x from L, giving you 10 from 50, 40. So you can only have 3 of whatever letter in a row. So you can have 3 i's or 3 x's, but you can never have more than that. 50 is L, 60 would be LX, 70 LXX, 80 LXXX. So very similar to this, only bigger numbers. Okay, so then you get up to the bigger numbers. So you have LXXX for 80, and then you have XC for 90, because again, you can't have 4 x's in a row. So that's 10 from 100. Then 100 is C. That one makes sense because 100 is centum in Latin, like a century. So you get C. 500, however, is D. So 300 would be CCC, but 400 would be CD. So 100 from 500, giving you 400. I don't know why it's D. Couldn't tell you. And then 1,000 is M. Like a millennium, milla in Latin is M. So you get like millipede from that, unlike centipede, which is 100 legs. Millipede is 1,000 legs. So when we're talking about recent dates, for instance, the 2000s would be MM, and then like 2020, for instance, would be MMXX, versus 1900 something would be MCM. So you have 1,000 and then 100 from 1,000, so 1,900. So I'm going to have you practice with those for homework just because it's so useful and you see these all the time. And it would be really great if you were able to just look at them and be like, ah, yes, I know what that Roman numerals, and then impress people. So feel free to practice. Please let me know if you have questions, and I will see you all later. Have a great Monday.